Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, dear students, you are welcome in this class. Today we are going to discuss essential plant copper, molybdenum, chloride, nickel elements. In the last lecture, we have already discussed iron and some other micronutrients. So, learning objective of this class are to understand the role, deficiency symptoms and ways to correct the deficiency of some micronutrients like zinc, copper, molybdenum, chloride and nickel. Learn about the positive beneficial elements like silicon, cobalt, vanadium, cerium and sodium on plant growth. So, these are the major learning objective, and before going into the detail, let us learn some glossary like cobalt, a metallic element with an atomic weight of 58.94 is one of the transition elements belonging to the group 9, formerly group 8 of the periodic table. Foliar application. It involves spraying nutrients on leaves for their rapid absorption, also called foliar spray, foliar feeding, foliar nutrition and foliar fertilization. Heavy metals. These are elements with high atomic weights and densities. This term is normally used for elements like lead, cadmium, mercury, which may have harmful effects on plants and animals. Silica. It is actually silicon dioxide, one of the most abundant materials on the Earth's crust, and quartz is an example of silica. Vanadium. It is a silvery white metallic transition element of group 5 of the periodic table and exhibits a range of valencies from +2 to +5, and ores containing vanadium include wendite and carnotite. Yield. What is yield? Yield means the economic part of the plant used for human or animal consumption. Zinc. It is a bluish white metal belonging to the 12th group of the periodic table. It occurs naturally as sphalerite, smithsonite, hemimorphite and wurtzite, and is extracted by roasting the oxide and reducing with carbon. Zincated urea. Now it is there in the market, zincated urea. It contains about 2% zinc. It is a mixture of urea containing zinc as a micronutrient material or a mixture of urea with zinc sulfate heptahydrate. It can be made either by dry mixing, bulk blending or coating common fertilizers such as ammonium nitrate or urea. Zinc chelates are really emerging up as very important zinc fertilizer, and zinc chelate is an inorganic complex in which a ligand like ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid EDTA is bound to the zinc ion at more than 2 points, so that the metal ion becomes part of the ring of atoms. The zinc EDTA complex is an example. Zinc frits. These are frits with zinc as the main micronutrient. Fusing salts of zinc with glass or glass components forms zinc frits. Now let us start about zinc, the essential role of zinc. It is required directly or indirectly by several enzymes, auxins in protein synthesis and in seed production. It has variety of other roles also, like zinc is believed to promote RNA synthesis, which in turn is needed for protein production. Thus, it has very important role in protein production, and zinc deficiency occurs when its levels are less than 20 milligram zinc per kg dry matter, or you can call it 20 ppm is the critical limit, below which it will become deficient in plant. And symptoms are interveinal yellowing on young leaves, reduced leaf size, chocolate brown burned up rice plant. This is typical symptoms of zinc deficiency in rice. White bud in maize, and sometimes there may be excess of zinc also under certain situation where more than 200 ppm zinc per kg of dry matter becomes toxic to the plant, and excess zinc may cause iron deficiency in some plants. Zinc deficiency symptoms that are restricted to cereals, for example, mobility of zinc is low, means mobility to younger tissue is depressed in zinc deficient plants. So, stunted plant growth, poor tilling, light green yellowish bleached spots, chlorotic bands on either side of the midrib in monocots. Brown, rusty spots on leaves in some crops, which in acute zinc deficiency as in rice may cover the lower leaves also. Internodes are short, particularly in cereals like your rice or wheat. Flowering, fruiting and maturity can be delayed. This is quite interesting, and shoots may die off and leaves can fall prematurely. Zinc toxicity can result in reduction in root growth and leaf expansion followed by chlorosis. Particularly in rice, we see that zinc deficiency symptoms appear between 2 to 4 weeks after transplanting, means when the tilling starts. So, dusty brown spots on upper leaves, uneven plant growth and patches of poorly established hills. Tilling decreases and can stop completely. In rice, tilling is very important. If tilling is depressed, definitely it is going to affect the growth and yield of rice. Increased spikelette sterility means rice will produce less grain per panicle, and chlorotic midribs near the leaf base of younger leaves. Leaves lose turgor and turn brown as brown blotches and leaf blade size is reduced. You can see in this picture where tilling has been drastically reduced due to zinc deficiency. Now, let us see the critical level soil levels for occurrence of zinc deficiency. Actually, zinc is estimated by different methods like extraction with ammonium acetate, DTPA extraction or with hydrochloric acid. So, for critical limit 0.6 milligram zinc per kg means 0.6 ppm is the critical limit if zinc is extracted by 1 normal ammonium acetate at pH 4.8. Limit may be 0.8 milligram zinc per kg DTPA methods, 1 milligram for 0.05 normal HCl, 1.5 milligram zinc per kg EDTA methods and 2 milligram zinc per kg or 2 ppm zinc if it is extracted with 0.1 normal HCl from soil. Depending on the zinc level, zinc deficiency status of plants may be categorized into 4. Less than 10 ppm or 10 milligram per kg is definite zinc deficiency, 10 to 15 milligram very likely zinc deficient plant, 15 to 20 milligram likely zinc deficient, and if it is more than 20 milligram per kg, then it is unlikely. Then you have sufficient levels of zinc in the plant. P or zinc ratio or iron and zinc ratio are quite important, and one can judge the deficiency of zinc based upon these ratios. The ratio of phosphorus is to zinc and iron is to zinc in the shoot at tilling to the PI. PI is panicle initiation stage, are good indicators of zinc deficiency. Value should not exceed P is to zinc 20 to 60 is to 1 in shoots at 6 weeks after planting, and iron is to zinc 5 to 7 is to 1 in shoots at 6 weeks after planting. Now, you can see the deficiency symptoms of zinc. On the top two pictures, you got cotton where you can see the yellowing of the leaves and some browning of the leaf, and also on the bottom you can see the zinc deficiency symptoms in maize plant. Then rice, you can see tilling is reduced and dusty brown spots on the leaves in rice on the top right picture, and uneven field growth, plant stunting, tilling is reduced and appearance of dusty brown spots on the upper leaf. So, these are typical iron deficiency symptoms in zinc deficiency symptoms in rice, which is also called as Khera disease. You can see further zinc deficiency symptoms in rice, maize. This is barley crop, this is sugarcane. Now, what are the areas that are affected by zinc deficiency? Soil with coarse texture, high pH, high calcium carbonate and low organic matter content will show iron zinc deficiency. Acid, leached, sandy and sandy loam soils are also zinc deficient. High available P and manganese soils also reduces zinc availability. Submerged or floodplain soils, mostly under flooded conditions you will find zinc deficiency irrespective of the soil because of precipitation of zinc. Soils irrigated with sodic waters and when topsoil is removed during leveling or lost through erosion. Then why this zinc deficiency happens? What are the reasons? Let us see. Small amount of available zinc in the soil. Soil by default is deficient in zinc. Planted varieties are susceptible to zinc deficiency. We have certain variety which are zinc use efficient. They can extract zinc even if the zinc level in soil is low. High pH soils or 7 or alkaline under anaerobic conditions, solubility of zinc decrease by 2 orders for each unit increase in pH. So, by increasing the pH, you will get less zinc from the soil. Precipitated as sparingly soluble zinc hydroxide when pH increases in acid soil following flooding. Formation of zinc phosphates following large use of phosphatic fertilizers. High P content in irrigation water also means only areas with polluted water. Many times if you apply excess phosphorus, it will reduce the zinc availability, and vice versa. If you apply excess quantity of zinc, it will reduce the availability of phosphorus. So, many times interaction of zinc and phosphorus is antagonistic, and sometimes up to certain level it is found to be synergistic also. High bicarbonate concentration because of reducing condition in calcareous soil with high organic matter content or because of large concentration of bicarbonate in irrigation water. Formation of complexes between zinc and organic matter in soils with high pH and high organic matter, that is large application of organic manures and crop residues. Precipitation of zinc at zinc sulfide when pH decrease in alkaline soil following flooding. So, zinc sulfide can be formed and which is not available to the plants, and excessive liming can also cause the zinc deficiency. Now, let us see, some people have done some experimental work on zinc crop and they have found some response to the zinc. So, response under most of the cases was very significant. So, you can see in cereal crops response was 420 to 550 kilogram grain per hectare due to zinc application, and in pulses it was 170 to 460 kilogram grain per hectare increase over no zinc control, means zinc application has increased the grain yield significantly. In oil seeds 110 to 360 kilogram grain per hectare increase over no zinc control, and in fodder plants 0.09 to 4.6 tons green fodder, means the message is that across the crops the response to zinc was achieved. Now, see the status of zinc in different kind of soils. So, total zinc in world soil ranges from 10 to 300 milligram per kg with an average of 50 milligram per kg. You can say on an average we have 50 ppm zinc in soils. In general, light sandy soils contain 31 to 61 milligram zinc per kg, while heavy soils contain little larger quantity, that is 35 to 75 milligram zinc per kg. Total zinc in Indian soils is reported to be 47 milligram per kg in antisols, 60 milligram per kg in insectisols, 61 milligram per kg in aridisols, 63 milligram per kg in vertisols, 44 milligram per kg in alphisols, 43 milligram per kg in altisols, and 30 milligram per kg in molisols, 72 milligram per kg in oxysols. So, these are the variability of zinc content in soil depending upon the order of the soil as well as organic matter content in the soil. More zinc is present as insoluble compounds and is unavailable to plants. Only exchangeable zinc on clay minerals, hydrous oxides of aluminum and iron and organic matter particle surfaces contributes to soil solution zinc and becomes available to the crop plants. Exchangeable zinc in Indian soil varies from 0.1 to 2 milligram per kg, which is very significant from point of availability of the zinc in soils. So, zinc in soil solution at any time is very little and tends to be in equilibrium with exchangeable zinc. Barber 1995 reported that zinc in soil solution varies from 10 to the power minus 10 molar to 10 to the power minus 6 molar. Carroll and Lonergan 1969 reported that 10 to power minus 7 to 10 to power minus 9 molar zinc levels in solution culture studies were found to be critical for plant growth. Zinc deficiency is likely to occur in soils when soil solution zinc is between 10 to the power minus 10 to 10 to the power minus 8 molar, reported by Lindsay. Now, what are the factors that affect the zinc availability in the soil? So, there are several factors, particularly soil pH, calcium carbonate content, moisture content, organic matter content, temperature, and some many more factors affect the zinc availability in soils. So, let us start with soil pH. The solubility of zinc decreases 100-fold for each unit increase of soil pH. Means as you increase the pH of the soil, the zinc availability decreases. Rupa and Tomar from laboratory studies reported that desorption of adsorbed P decreased with increasing pH and abruptly stopped at pH 7.5. Calcium carbonate, it increases soil pH and it sorbs zinc on its surface and may form insoluble calcium zincate. Other group of scientists reported that zinc could be held on calcium carbonate surfaces at zinc hydroxycarbonate. This would explain why zinc deficiency is more prevalent on calcareous soils, particularly in Bihar region where we have calcareous soils. Zinc deficiency is quite prevalent. Next factor affecting zinc availability is amount of sodium, calcium and magnesium. These are cations. Both sodium and magnesium increase soil pH and also compete with calcium for absorption sites on plant roots. Katyal and Sharma reported reduced zinc uptake by plants in calcium and magnesium rich soils. Means as you increase the levels of calcium and magnesium in soil, the availability of zinc decreases. Next is phosphate. Zinc deficiency in corn is often aggravated by phosphate fertilization, especially on calcareous soils. Zinc can form insoluble zinc phosphate when concentration of phosphate is high in soil solution. However, this may still be available to the crop plants. In field studies in India, zincated superphosphate compared with well with zinc sulfate as a source of zinc. Means zincated superphosphate was as good as your zinc sulfate, reported by Sakal et al. 1985. Customized zincated NPKs are produced and used in India. These days now some value added fertilizers are available containing some quantity of zinc as well. Phosphate continues. The root colonization by arbuscular mycorrhiza, means these AM fungi. Now before people were calling them VAM, vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. Now they are called as AM fungi, arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi. So, the root colonization by AM fungi increases spatial availability of zinc similar to that of phosphorus. Mycorrhizal plants usually have higher zinc contents in the shoot dry matter and are less sensitive to zinc deficiency than non-mycorrhizal plants. Means treatment of roots or seeds or inoculation of mycorrhiza helps in the availability and uptake of phosphorus. As a rule, all factors which impair root colonization by AM fungi, including high levels of soil or fertilizer P, tend to decrease zinc content in plants and increase the risk of zinc deficiency in plants grown on soils low in extractable zinc. Now, let us see how soil moisture affects the zinc availability. Adequate moisture in soil is necessary for zinc uptake. This is why zinc deficiency is more pronounced in dry regions. So, zinc deficiency is more pronounced in both extremes, very dry conditions or very wet conditions also one may find zinc deficiency. Gao and co-workers 2006 reported that zinc concentration in rice leaves at trilling as well as physiological maturity was lower under alternate wetting and drying conditions as compared to that under flooding conditions. Now, soil moisture continues. Water soluble zinc availability decreases in flooded soils. This is quite interesting fact that rice, when it is grown under flooded conditions or submerged conditions, zinc deficiency is normally bound to happen, particularly when we do not use zinc fertilizers. So, see the reasons why zinc deficiency availability decreases under flooded conditions. Number 1, precipitation of zinc hydroxide as a result of increased pH after flooding. The flooding of any soil brings the pH of the soil to the neutrality. If it is acidic pH, it will become neutral pH. If it is alkaline pH, it will also come to the neutrality. Precipitation of zinc carbonate due to carbon dioxide accumulation resulting from organic matter decomposition. This is another reason. Precipitation of zinc sulfide under very reduced soil conditions and high manganese concentration antagonize zinc absorption and translocation. Root system also affects the zinc availability. Since iron, zinc, manganese, copper and nickel all have restricted mobility in the soil, their acquisition can be improved by increasing root biomass and by developing a more extensive root system. Roots play a greater part in the translocation of zinc from soil to grain during grain formation stage in rice as compared to wheat and barley. Because there is no discontinuation of xylem at the base of the grain in rice as it is in wheat and barley. As a contrast, most zinc in the grains in wheat and barley comes by translocation from the leaves. You can see this map. This map tells us the soil zinc deficiency status in different agroecological sub-regions of India. See the red color, deep red color, more than 50% districts or soils here in this zone are deficient in zinc. See the orange one where about 40 to 50% soils are deficient in zinc. See the light dark yellow 30 to 40% and see like this. So, means most of the soils in India are zinc deficient. According to one estimate, it is 44% soils deficient in zinc in India. Now, what can be done if we face zinc deficiency? So, it is very easy to overcome the zinc deficiency provided people follow certain guidelines. For example, selection of zinc efficient varieties. We have developed now some zinc efficient genotype which can do better under zinc deficient conditions. Let us choose those genotype of crops which are zinc use efficient. In nursery, broadcast zinc sulfate in nursery seed bed for rice. Crop establishment, dip the seedlings or pre-soak seeds in 2 to 4% zinc oxide suspension, that is 20 to 40 gram zinc oxide per liter of water. One can make the suspension of zinc oxide and dip the seedling roots, particularly for rice. Soil application is most efficient. 25 to 60 kilogram per hectare zinc sulfate can be top dressed, mixed in soil by hoe and then irrigation. So, level this range is quite wide, 25 to 60 kilogram per hectare. It varies with the soil. In very light texture soils, sandy soils, zinc is more deficient. So, rate of application will be more. If your fundamentally soils are deficient in zinc, rate of application will be more. For rice wheat system in Indo-Gangetic plain, for example, 25 kilogram zinc sulfate per hectare is the recommendation. Foliar spray can also be accomplished under certain cases, that is 0.5 to 1% solution of zinc sulfate can be used to correct the zinc deficiency. Zinc sulfate should be neutralized with half the quantity of unslaked lime, particularly in broad-leaved crops. If it is not neutralized, then sulfate will form sulfuric acid and this will burn the leaves of the plant. Therefore, it must be mixed with lime solution. See this example, already in 2016 one variety was released for rice, high zinc rice variety. It is rich in zinc and zinc use efficient DRR Dhan 45. Now, after zinc we go to the next nutrient element, that is molybdenum. It is involved in several enzyme systems, nitrate reductase system needed for reduction of nitrate and nitrogenase. So, it is necessary for biological nitrogen fixation by rhizobium in the roots of leguminous plants. Present in the chloroplast of leaves, involved in absorption and translocation of iron in plants. Molybdenum in soils. The primary minerals in the parent materials govern the amount of molybdenum in soils, but this amount will be changed by physical and chemical processes. Available fraction of molybdenum represents the molybdenum associated with clay minerals, oxyhydroxides and organic matter. Molybdenite MoS2 is the only important ore for molybdenum. Molybdenum deficiency generally occurred in high podzolized soils. We continue with the molybdenum in soils. In acid soil, molybdenum is least soluble but readily mobilized in alkaline soils. The forms in which molybdenum occurs in soil are tentatively recognized as primary crystalline material, water-soluble molybdenate in the soil solution, organically complex molybdenum, molybdenate adsorbed on positively charged surfaces, and of course discrete secondary compounds either crystalline or amorphous. Now, what happens to the plants when they face molybdenum deficiency? So, it is present in soils in extremely small quantities, less than 2 ppm or 2 milligram per kg soil, which is adequate for plants. Its availability increases as the soil pH increases. That means, if your soils are acidic, then molybdenum deficiency is bound to happen. When the molybdenum content of plant is less than 0.2 ppm, deficiency occurs. So, this is the critical level of molybdenum in plants. Acidic soils, peat soils and acidic sandy soils are generally deficient in molybdenum. So, you must remember that the symptoms are closely related to nitrogen metabolism, as molybdenum is concentrated in nitrate reductase enzyme. Deformation of leaves, whiptail in cauliflower is a disease, physiological disorder, happens due to molybdenum deficiency, and it is quite common in acidic soils. In wheat, yellowing of leaves. In acute deficiency, empty heads, means there will not be spikelet formation in the spikes of wheat. Molybdenum deficiency resembles that of nitrogen deficiency in legumes because of the role of molybdenum in nitrogen fixation. Stunting and yellowing of plants is quite common symptom of molybdenum deficiency. In legume crops, marginal scorching, curling and crinkling of leaves, interveinal chlorosis followed by the plant turning pale yellow and becoming stunted. In cauliflower, of course, it is whiptail, and in cashew nut, the yellow leaf spot happens. Cauliflower, Brussels sprout, broccoli and citrus fruits are quite sensitive to low molybdenate levels in the soil or plant. Cotton, leafy vegetables, corn, tomato and sweet potato are moderately sensitive to lower molybdenate levels. See this picture about molybdenum deficiency symptoms in cauliflower, which is also called as whiptail disease. Now, what can be done if our plants are suffering from molybdenum deficiency? We need to follow certain corrective measures, including addition of 40 to 400 gram molybdenum per hectare of soil. Foliar spray can be accomplished by sodium molybdenate 0.03%. Remember, the concentration is very low. This is 0.03% on cashews. Soil is limed to increase plant uptake. That is the best way for acidic soils. Ammonium molybdenate for potato can be used, approximately 1 kg per hectare in soil, 0.5 kg in 1000 liters of water for sprays, and 200 gram for soaking seed tubers for potato. A disease called pencil point in coconut can be cured with a 0.25 gram per liter of ammonium molybdenate. We go to the next element, that is chlorine or chloride. It is thought to be involved in the production of oxygen during photosynthesis, in raising cell osmotic pressure and in maintaining tissue hydration. Chloride in abundantly available in sea water and in inland waters. We should remember, when we put -1 charge on chlorine, it becomes chloride. So, usually from the nutritional point of view or plant nutrition point of view, we generally call it chloride. So, it exists as a constituent of a large number of soil minerals. Among soils, that the chloride content is higher in saline and alkali soils. Fertilizers, irrigation water, atmosphere and other amendments are the source of chloride for crop plants. In soils, total content of chloride varies from 5 to 800 milligram per kg with an average value of 100 milligram per kg. As chloride exists as an anion in soil solution, it is easily leached down in well-drained soils, particularly in sandy soils and light textured soil. The leaching of chloride is quite common. Excess chloride may accumulate in areas with high water level table and imperfectly drained soils. It is accumulated in soil lying areas, in low lying areas that receive runoff from other lands. Chloride deficiency, wilting of leaf blade tips followed by chlorosis, bronzing and necrosis. Necrosis means the death of the tissues, restricted root growth, and sometimes there may be chloride excess also, increased osmotic pressure of soil water, resulting in reduced availability of water to plants and consequently wilting. So, this can be very serious kind of issue with chloride excess, that water availability to the plants is decreased. Plants develop leaf burn symptoms when chloride concentration in plants reaches about 0.5% on dry matter basis. So, you can see chloride deficiency symptoms in wheat crop. Now, this is chloride injury in potato. The next essential element is copper, and we know the role of copper is very, very important. It is one of the micronutrients, metallic micronutrients. There are 4-5 metallic micronutrients like iron, zinc, copper, manganese, nickel, and of course, this copper. So, they are required in very minute, very less quantities, therefore, they are called as micronutrient. This copper is important micronutrient and it is involved in chlorophyll formation and is a part of several enzymes such as cytochrome oxidase. Means if there is no or there is insufficient copper, there will be less synthesis of chlorophyll. Therefore, for greenness of the plant, copper is also necessary. It participates in lignin formation, protein synthesis and carbohydrate metabolism, and is possibly required in symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Some authors or some scientists see the role of copper particularly in the symbiotic nitrogen fixation. In symbiotic nitrogen fixation, you know, in the root nodules of the legume plants, these rhizobium bacteria fix nitrogen, and there are of course certain free living bacteria like Azotobacter, Azospilum that also fix free nitrogen in the soils. So, these copper element has some role to play in nitrogen fixation by the organisms. Now, let us see the status of copper in soils. The copper content in soil generally ranges from 5 to 60 milligram per kg. That means 5 to 60 ppm per kg. This is quite a wide range. Although both the lower and upper limits are definitely not fixed, copper content in soil generally decreases with soil depth. So, therefore, in the top soil about say 0 to 30 centimeter, whatever copper is there may not be there in 30 to 60 centimeter. Means as you go deeper into the soil, the content of copper decreases. The addition of organic materials such as farmyard manure increases DTPA extractable copper in surface soils. You know, these copper, manganese, zinc and iron, these 4 metallic cations or micronutrients are extracted by DTPA. So, this copper is also extracted by DTPA. This addition of organic material definitely increases the DTPA extractable copper, means availability of copper is increased if we add organic matter, because organic matter is having sufficient levels of carbon, iron, manganese, etc. The most widely occurring copper mineral is chalcopyrite, which is FeS2, iron pyrite also called as iron pyrite. Other copper bearing minerals are chalcocite, malachite, tannorite, cupric ferrite, bornite, digenite and tetraherite, etc. reported by Prasad 2007. In soils, copper is found mostly in the cupric form adsorbed by clay minerals as well as organic complexes. Definitely cupric has +2 charge and it is there in the soil and it is in the organic complexes. Copper, like any other element, is present in soil in 5 different forms. This has been reported by Prasad 2007. First is soil solution, means whatever copper is there in the soil solution is actually available to the plant. Number 2 is surface adsorbed and exchangeable, means there are certain colloidal complex in the soil like humus and there may be clay colloids. This copper is adsorbed. Adsorbed means it is retained on those colloids in the soil. So, number 2. Number 3 is associated with organic matter. A large chunk of copper is associated with humus, it is associated with other kind of organic matter in the soil. The fourth one is it is associated with certain oxides and carbonates in the soil. As a component of primary minerals and secondary aluminosilicate minerals, it is there. So, therefore, you have seen that copper in soil is associated with 5 different forms: soil solution, surface adsorbed and exchangeable, associated with organic matter, associated with oxides and carbonate, and of course, as a component of primary minerals and secondary aluminosilicate minerals in the soil. Sometimes there may be deficiency of copper also in soils, particularly in alkaline soils. Youngest leaves become yellow and pale. Eventually, dead tissues appear along the tips and edges of leaves, as in case of potassium. So, youngest leaf become yellow means symptoms first come in the younger leaves. That means it is less mobile in the plant system. It cannot be retranslocated from lower parts of the plant or older leaves to the younger leaves. Therefore, being less mobile in the plant system, the deficiency symptoms of copper first appear in the youngest leaf or the new growth. Wherever you have meristematic growth, new growth, in those areas you will find copper deficiency in the plants. Now, these are the symptoms, copper deficiency symptoms in wheat plant. See the picture 1, 2, 3, 4. It is just like copper kind of color in the younger leaves of the wheat plant. Now, see in different plants, see the picture number 1 at the extreme left on the top side, ear head forming a red tail like appearance. In the wheat, you can see due to copper deficiency, you are having ear head forming a red tail like appearance. This number 2 in pigeon pea, 2, 3, 4, the remaining picture belong to pigeon pea or red gram, chlorotic and bleached leaves with boat like appearance. You can see the individual leaf, it looked like a boat. That means there has been curling on the margins of the leaves. See next picture, new emerging leaves fail to unfold. There is definitely restriction on the growth, meristematic growth of the pigeon pea plant. See the next picture, wilting and rolling of leaves showing a boat like structure. It is quite clear in the picture that the leaves are making like a boat, and therefore, the size of the individual leaf is reduced. Once the size of the individual leaves is reduced, the leaf area also reduces or decreases. In that case, the rate of photosynthesis will be affected, and finally, the growth of the plant will be affected in case of copper deficiency. Now, we go to the nickel. Nickel was added in 1987 to the list of essential plant nutrients. Before that, there were 16 essential elements, and 17th one was nickel, which was added by Brown and his co-workers in 1987. So, from perspective of essential nutrient plant, it has been researched less than the toxicity, because toxicity of nickel may be quite prevalent in some soils. However, deficiency is quite uncommon. It is not very common nickel deficiency. So, let us see the role of this its functional element or nutrient after the discovery that the urease from jack bean is a nickel metalloenzyme. Means this nickel is very much or essential or indispensable part of the enzyme urease. And urease enzyme, I think as a student you know the role of urease enzyme. It converts urea into other compounds. It breaks down the urea in the soil, this urease enzyme. So, nickel is considered as a functional element because it plays a role in plant metabolism, whether or not that role is specific or indispensable. So, it is actually a functional element. Nickel is a part of the enzyme urease which breaks down urea in the soil, and it also plays a role in imparting disease resistance. It makes your plant stronger, it can fight the diseases better than other plants. It also plays a role in imparting disease resistance and is considered essential for seed development. So, nickel has a role in the seed development also. Brown and co-workers 1987 showed that nickel is essential for grain viability in barley. Therefore, it was proved by them that nickel is an essential element. Now, beyond doubt, now people agree that nickel is an essential element which falls in the category of micronutrients, means it is required in very less quantities. The essentiality of nickel as a plant nutrient in soybeans, chickpeas and temperate cereals was also proved by Brown and co-workers in 1987. They have already illustrated it. But its essential function in higher plants other than in urease metabolism is yet to be established. Nickel is a component of the enzyme urease, and plants deficient in nickel have high levels of urea in their leaves because of poor metabolism of urea in the plant system. Nickel deficient plants are slow growing, and for barley viable grain is not produced. This is very serious issue. If we do not have sufficient levels of zinc in barley plant, then we will not be able to get the viable seed. Means if we do the sowing of such seed, they will not germinate because they do not have a live embryo. So, its requirement for other than grain crops has not been established. Now, see the nickel toxicity. As already told to you that deficiency is not a serious issue in case of nickel, but its toxicity is more pronounced under certain soils. So, nickel like aluminum has mostly received the attention of soil scientists or agronomists from the viewpoint of its toxic effect on the plant growth. The toxicity symptoms resembles that of iron deficiency symptoms. So, therefore, many times we get confused that the toxicity symptoms of nickel resemble the deficiency of iron. So, that means under these conditions the symptoms are not enough. One need to analyze the tissue concentration of iron and nickel to ascertain that is it due to iron nickel toxicity or is it due to iron deficiency. Then the rapid tissue analysis or some quantitative analysis of the plant tissue can help to make the difference between these two. A characteristic feature of nickel toxicity in cereals and grasses is a variation in the intensity of chlorosis. So, you get variegated chlorosis due to this, along with the length of the leaf yielding a series of transverse bands of different shades of green and yellow color. So, this is the typical toxicity symptoms of nickel. Now, after nickel, friends, we have certain beneficial nutrients. Beneficial nutrients means these are the nutrients which does not fall in the category of essential nutrient, but they have been found to benefit the plant. They can increase the photosynthesis rate, they can increase the sugar content or chlorophyll content in plants, they can increase the functions of the root, they can provide certain resistance against insect pests and diseases. So, these beneficial elements are of course not part of the essential nutrients, but they have been found to be quite useful under certain circumstances or for certain crops in some soils. So, see the example of sodium, silicon, cobalt, vanadium, aluminum, lanthanum and cerium. So, these are the certain beneficial elements. We start with sodium. So, let us see the role of sodium, why sodium is important, how it is beneficial. So, conversion of pyruvate to phosphoenol pyruvate in the mesophyll cells in C4 plant. It was reported by Johnson and his co-workers in 1988. The next role is assimilation of nitrate and conversion of nitrite in blue-green alga Anabaena cylindrica. These are known as cyanobacteria. These are single-celled organism and kind of primitive organism, cyanobacteria. So, in them the sodium has very important role in the assimilation of nitrite and conversion of in the assimilation of nitrate and conversion of nitrite in blue-green alga. Next is sugar beet crop, chukandar, sugar beet responds positively even in the presence of adequate K. Sodium can also increase the sugar concentration, reported by Al-Sheikh and Abrich 1970. So, there are some more reports where even sugarcane crop has been benefited due to addition of sodium under Indian conditions as well. So, what happens, why sodium has become beneficial for certain plants? Because sodium can partly substitute for potassium in several species. So, it competes for the plant uptake with potassium or sometimes with calcium also or maybe magnesium also. So, these four elements, they compete with each other like sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium. So, they compete with each other. So, therefore, sodium can partly substitute function of potassium in several species, improved stomatal function. So, it takes over function of potassium, which is improved stomatal function and osmotic and electrical balance of the cells. Sodium can overcome the impairment of carbohydrate transport associated with calcium deficiency. So, that means it has some role in the transport of carbohydrate. More transport of carbohydrate means more sugars, more starch, more production or higher yields. So, but sometimes there may be toxicity of sodium also. Soils having high exchangeable sodium as well as high pH, in those conditions one can have toxicity of sodium as well. Use of sodic underground water. Under certain situation, the groundwater table is not good, it is sodic water. If we continuously do irrigation with the sodic water, then definitely we can have excess accumulation of sodium in the soil and then it can lead to the toxicity and which can harm the crop. Not only this, it also affects the capillary movement in the soil, dispersion. It disperses in the soil and affects the capillary movement and hence the availability of water. So, it depends upon the concentration or level of sodium in the soil. Now, we touch upon the next beneficial element, that is silicon. So, it is second most abundant element in lithosphere, accounting for about 26% by weight. So, it is very large quantity of silicon in our Earth's crust. So, it is of course necessary for the normal growth of rice. In rice, we have got some positive response to the silicon application. It has been reported by Okawa 1936 and 1937 as early as. In sugarcane, its beneficial role was referred by Fox and co-workers in 1967. For barley, again it was Okawa 1937 and for beet or sugar beet it was Raleigh 1939. So, for normal growth, several workers have reported that silicon has some beneficial role. Other is yield increase in sugarcane due to 4.5 tons per hectare calcium silicate application was 10 tons per hectare millable canes. Thus, it has increased the yield of the millable cane in sugarcane. This and the most common fertilizer to apply silicon is calcium silicate. It can be used to supply the silicon. Yield increase in rice could be due to increased resistance to fungal diseases like blast. It has been proved beyond doubt that proper silicon nutrition or proper silicon status in the plant reduces the incidence of insect pest and disease in rice, particularly in case of blast. So, if you have sufficient levels of silicon in the plant system, the incidence of blast will definitely reduce and also the attack of insect pests will also reduce and it can also reduce the manganese toxicity. Therefore, silicon nutrition has become very important. We in India in several places now find response to silicon fertilizer application, particularly in rice, wheat and in some other cereal crops. So, research is underway and we are getting response to its application. Members of Cyperaceae and rice can accumulate as high as more than 4% silicon in dry matter compared with dicoats. So, therefore, the requirement of silicon for monocoats is much higher than those for the dicoats. Addition of silicon increases phosphorus availability in soil. So, this is quite interesting fact that phosphorus and silicon have some positive interaction. If we add silicon in the soil, it increases the availability of the phosphorus. It was reported by Suesa et al. 1963, and this can result in improved plant growth and yield, because under certain situation, if you have phosphorus deficiency and you apply silicon, it will increase the availability of phosphorus. So, availability of silicon will also increase. Therefore, plants will be benefited in terms of its growth and yield. We go to the next essential or beneficial element, cobalt. It is involved in nitrogen fixation and is therefore essential for legumes or dicoats legumes. It was reported by Ahmad and Evans in 1960. Essentially required for microorganism fixing atmospheric nitrogen. Concentration is 0.02 to 0.5 ppm, and it is essential for free living nitrogen fixing bacteria and blue green algae. And also some people claim that it is mandatory, it is essential for nitrogen fixation in legumes also, has been reported by some people. Soviet workers have reported responses to cotton, bean and mustard, means addition of cobalt. They found some improvement in growth and yield of cotton, beans and even mustard. Now we go to the next beneficial element, which is vanadium. So, low concentration are beneficial for microbes, particularly microbes which are living in soil. For their activity, vanadium at lower concentration is quite beneficial. It can be beneficial for certain animals and some higher plants. So, definitely considered as an essential element for green alga Cynadesmus. For Cynadesmus, it has been found to be definitely essential. That means this particular alga cannot live without vanadium. Increase in growth have been reported for asparagus, rice, lettuce, barley and corn. Growth improvement with respect to maybe leaf size, leaf number, chlorophyll content, dry matter accumulation, plant height and several other growth attributes were improved due to application of vanadium. Now we go to aluminum. Actually, most of the time aluminum has been found to be toxic, particularly in acidic soils, where if you reduce the pH, the iron availability increases, and the iron concentration is too high at lower pH, where it also fixes phosphorus in the soil. So, the iron toxicity becomes very serious issue in acidic soils. So, there is no problem of availability of aluminum in acidic soils. However, in alkaline soil, under certain situations, there may be deficiency of aluminum if it is acting as a beneficial nutrient. So, stimulatory effect of aluminum on plant growth have been observed in aluminum accumulators such as tea, as well as in non-aluminum accumulators. So, there are certain beneficial effects on certain aluminum accumulator plants and in certain non-aluminum accumulator plants. So, beneficial in terms of particularly growth. There is one plant which is known as hydrangea. This hydrangea accumulates very high aluminum in its body. The toxic effects of aluminum in acidic soils are well known and well recognized also, particularly in coastal areas of India where we have acidic soils. Sometimes this aluminum toxicity as well as iron toxicity could be an issue. Now, lanthanum and cerium, these are two beneficial elements. Large scale use of fertilizer called nongal. Nongal, in China, farmers used to refer it as happy farmer. The meaning of nongal in Chinese is happy farmer containing lanthanum and cerium nitrates is reported from China. An increase in yield of the order of 5 to 10% as well as product quality improvement in number of annuals and perennials. In China, they have found the beneficial effect with respect to increase in yield, that is about 5 to 10%, and also there was improvement in the product quality. Product quality means there may be improvement in the protein, there may be improvement in the texture, color, or some nutritional composition may have improved. So, because of application of lanthanum or cerium, there is improvement in growth and quality of certain crops, particularly in some annuals and perennials, as has been reported by Chinese workers. No evidence of essentiality of lanthanum and cerium has been yet produced, but they have been found to be beneficial elements. Now we go to selenium. Selenium is the next beneficial nutrient, but it is mostly treated from the point of view of toxicity. So, areas irrigated with underground water containing high amounts of selenium. So, under those conditions selenium toxicity may be there, and toxicity to cattle as well as human beings. Under certain areas of India like in West Bengal, the groundwater is having very high levels of selenium, and people or animal or plant, those who are using that water, maybe for plant it may be used for irrigation, for animal or human beings it may be used for drinking purposes. So, therefore, some selenium toxicity symptoms can come in plants as well as in human beings. And of course, there are certain heavy metals like copper, lead, cadmium, nickel. So, these are heavy metals, and sometimes these heavy metals may reach the water or groundwater, or they are also part of certain surface water like municipal water, waste water, those kind of water, polluted water. All these waters may have certain heavy metals like copper, lead, cadmium and nickel. So, these heavy metals may reach our food, they can reach our water. So, therefore, they can enter in the human body and they can cause certain damages. So, better to stop the entry of these heavy metals into the soil, so that they do not reach the plant, and finally from plant they do not reach to the human food. And another important point here is about these heavy metals, that they compete with the uptake of other nutrients like zinc. Zinc is also a heavy metal, but it is also an essential nutrient. If a soil is rich in lead, cadmium or some other heavy metals, these metals will compete for the uptake of the zinc. So, zinc uptake may reduce due to heavy metals. So, similarly uptake of other nutrients is affected by these heavy metals. So, these heavy metals will have some negative effect on the uptake of certain nutrient elements and on the translocation as well, translocation of certain elements, and finally the health of the human beings and animals who are dependent upon that water or that food materials. So, therefore, stop or treat the water before we are applying that water to the soil or as a source of water irrigation. So, areas where city waste of sewage sludge are disposed of. So, friends, today we have seen different micronutrients like zinc. In case of zinc, we have seen the deficiency of zinc occurs when the levels are less than 20 ppm in the plant. In soils, normally zinc deficiency is observed when it is less than 0.6 ppm. Similarly, we can have toxicity of zinc also when its levels are more than 200 ppm or 200 milligram per kilograms of the dry matter. So, zinc toxicity is possible, and we have also seen in soil how this zinc availability differs from soil to soil. We have seen under acidic pH there is no shortage of zinc. However, under alkaline soil we find zinc deficiency. Similarly, we have seen certain treatments, certain corrective measures, how we can correct the deficiency of zinc. We can use zinc by 25 kilograms zinc sulphate per hectare to correct the zinc deficiency. We can also use foliar spray to correct the zinc deficiency. We have also seen the role of molybdenum in plants. We have seen that how it affects the cauliflower. In cauliflower, whiptail disease occurs due to molybdenum deficiency. We have also seen role of copper in plant. Red tail like structure of the wheat spike can be there because of copper deficiency. We have seen that copper deficiency also affects the growing tissues etc. Similarly, we have seen nickel, and of course heavy metal we should not allow to enter the field. Thank you very much.